What are some ways that people are brainwashed, yet it is not widely considered to be actual brainwashing? In other words, what subtle ways does mind control occur in our society and the world? It's not particularly subtle, but military basic training is clearly a form of brainwashing. Massive behavioral control and monitoring of every aspect of the soldier's life. Sleep deprivation. Deliberate destruction of ego through mental and physical stress causing the replacement of individual identity with group identity. Separation from family and friends. Enforced in-group/out-group mentality. Humans are viciously controllable through herd mentality. Humans tend to form groups of like-minded people. It's ingrained in our culture and in our instincts as a way to ensure safety. We seek out those who are similar to us, and have an innate distrust of people who are different. It doesn't really matter what the difference is, could be race, could be nationality, could be Reddit versus Dig, could be iOS versus Android, Mac versus PC, Xbox versus PS, Sega versus Nintendo, doesn't matter. People will innately form groups and stand off with people in other groups. So all you have to do to control a large group of people is convince them they belong to a group with a core identity. Convince them that there is an external group who does not share their identity. From there, everything else is easy. You can paint group number 2 in any light you'd like, and your followers will hate them for it. If you want to be particularly nasty, you can further prey on humans' desire for safety by implying that group number 2 is attacking us and we need to fight back. Does that sound familiar? The war on drugs. The war on Christmas. Islamic fundamentalists who hate us for our freedoms. Ilegal immigrants. Obama taking away your freedom/guns/healthcare. The Holocaust. This tactic has been used for thousands of years, and continues to be as effective today as it was 5,000 years ago. This is true, but it doesn't answer the question. What you mentioned is widely considered brainwashing, although some of your examples don't actually contain the type of control you describe. This technique in the way you describe it is not subtle or commonplace, although it can be used in a much more nuanced, less dangerous form in advertisement, e.g. Apple manipulating their image to give their customers a sense of exclusivity and kinship. That said, that is more complicated than what you have described, and it is not as serious a problem. The American two-party political system, born out of first-past-the-post elections, brainwashes people into a very US versus them mentality and pushes citizens, and their politicians, into strict ideological pigeonholes. The idea of binarism is psychologically satisfying. It provides a form of primitive safety. I belong here, those are my people, I feel home, a sense of knowing, there is good and bad, black and white, as well as a primitive feeding of ego, those other people are worse than me, I'm on the good side and I know it, linking back to the idea of belonging somewhere and feeling if they were better I'd be there, not here, and so on. It's very primitive, but appeals to similarly primitive parts of our brains. And it works really well. The biggest way isn't any kind of programming, it's when people exploit the natural way the human brain works. We evolved under constant threats of danger in a violent, hostile world. As such, our brains jump to conclusions that are scientifically and logical unfounded very quickly to protect us and to keep us alive. If you want good examples of people hacking our mental weaknesses, they are everywhere. Advertising, internet clickbait, r/conspiracy, just look around and you will see political groups, people who want your money, and people who want to get you to join an angry mob all playing on the assumption that you can't think critically enough to stop and resist. Indoctrinating children to religion. At the moment only the most egregious examples outside the mainstream are considered brainwashing, but really it's the same thing in every case. Pushing a philosophy with no basis in reality as some kind of received truth to a child when you're in a position of trust and authority should not be accepted. In the end, if they do become religious, they're much more susceptible to manipulation by any charlatan who knows how to exploit the language of the faith well enough. Alcohol. It's poison, and many people are initially resistant to it but eventually give in to peer pressure. It's so normalized that people that don't drink are weird, even though abstaining is the most healthy and obvious choice. Slightly a side point, but it's also the most readily available drug. There's a whole range of ways to alter one's consciousness, but in the majority of the world only booze is readily available in shops. Anyone who decides to take anything else is considered a druggie. Again, the us versus them mentality that is placed upon society. Hard drug, forgot about caffeine somehow. Capitalism. The very notion of perpetual growth is impossible. It is fundamentally unworkable. 1/3 of the world live in poverty, but for us capitalist pigs, life is a breeze. Not saying I know anywhere near a workable solution, but we've been brainwashed to think that humanity as it stands is not sickening. It is only sickening if you've been brainwashed to believe this world is both fair and just. The world has never been fair. The world has never been just. Survival is all there is. To think otherwise is to consider us more than human. At the end of the day, we are animals just like the apes and pigs we look down upon. They say all is fair in love and war, but often forget those are just factors of survival. Pledging allegiance to the flag. Being told you're the best even though there are many, many problems that need to be addressed, thus making it a certainty that you will never solve those problems. After all, you're the best, no? Diet. The one I encounter most often in raising 2 vegetarian kids is, why are you forcing your dietary choices on them? As if meat eating is unquestionably the default way, or that parents who eat meat aren't equally forcing their dietary choices on their children. Leaving morality entirely out of it, it's a little strange that meat has become so ingrained in our eating habits that the lack of it is something to be remarked upon incredulously, or that some will go so far as to refuse a meal unless it contains one of a very select list of animals on it. We'd never do that with potatoes/rice/corn. But try add in more animals to the list and many people will say, ugh, that's so gross. If the animal is still alive or appears to be alive, like tentacles that keep wiggling for a while, even fewer people will touch it. Your parents brainwashes you directly and indirectly. We follow their examples from early on. When we are little, we try to learn what's right and wrong, what's acceptable and not acceptable, what's good and bad. Parents are the people who shape, mold, and direct kids from early on.